Hello everyone and welcome back. Tonight's video is 8 terrifying true basement horror stories you won't forget. Basements are supposed to be a place for storage. Dark, quiet, and out of sight. But for some people, they became the setting for their worst nightmares. From eerie noises in the shadows to horrifying discoveries underground, these true stories will stay with you long after the video ends. If you enjoy these horror tales, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? I always love seeing where everyone is tuning in. Now, let's begin. When Sarah and I bought our old Victorian, we adored its charm. The basement, however, was a different story. Typical for an 1800s house. Damp, musty, a mix of concrete and dirt floor, ancient groaning pipes. Sarah saw spiders. I saw dusty storage. Little did I know, it was already occupied. I rationalized the faint, rhythmic tap 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 from below as just the house settling, usually late at night. It wasn't water dripping. It was deliberate, like soft knuckles on wood. Then, a month in, a new sound began. A low humming lullaby, almost imperceptible. I tried to dismiss it. Old houses groan, but the lullaby was different, always the same simple melody, chillingly echoing from the dark. I noticed it most when I was down there, sorting boxes. I'd pause, and it would stop. The moment I resumed, it would begin again. A faint, disembodied hum from a section of newer plasterboard, brighter against the ancient stone. Someone had sealed something off. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, never heard a thing. Too many horror movies, Mark, she'd laugh. But it wasn't imagination. The humming grew clearer, sometimes with what sounded like a child's soft giggle, muffled, as if from behind a wall. My heart would bound. I started feeling profoundly uneasy, a pervasive sense of being watched, like an unwelcome intruder. One sweltering afternoon, alone, I was forced downstairs to fix a leaky pipe. The air was heavy, the musty smell now cloying, almost sickeningly sweet. As I wrestled with a rusted joint, the familiar lullaby started. Clearer than ever, distinct words, though I couldn't make them out. "Hello?" I called out, my voice a nervous whisper. The humming stopped instantly. Silence. Just the drip of the faulty pipe. Then, from behind that plasterboard wall, a single, sharp tap. It wasn't a pipe. It was deliberate. A knock. I froze, every nerve screaming. My breath hitched, slowly. Drawn by a morbid dread, I leaned my head close to the cool plaster, my ear pressed against it. And then I heard it. A small, innocent voice, barely a whisper, clear as day, right on the other side, just inches away. "Play with me." The words weren't menacing, but the impossible context. It ripped through me like an ice pick. I didn't scream, I didn't run. I just backed away, then scrambled up those stairs, not daring to look back, my heart pounding. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it. We lived in that house for 2 more years, and I never went back down alone. The hum, the tapping, the giggles. They continued, always from behind that wall. We sold the house, never mentioning what was in the basement. To this day, the thought of that voice so close, asking me to play, it still makes the hair on my arms stand on end. I often wonder about the new owners. Did they hear the lullaby? Did the child behind the wall ever get out? Did it ever find someone else to play with? Our first house was a fixer-upper, a split level from the 70s with a partially finished basement. My husband, Dave, built an office down there, but the rest was storage and a utility area. My least favorite chore was laundry, because the washer and dryer were tucked into a cramped, dim corner behind a heavy plastic curtain. I never liked that corner. It always felt colder, darker, even with the bare bulb buzzing overhead. One afternoon, folding clothes, I heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible scrape from the concrete floor coming from behind the plastic curtain. I froze. "Dave," I called, my voice thin. No response. My heart jumped. I tried to tell myself it was the house settling or a cat. But our cats hated the basement. I tried to ignore it, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, like a physical weight. I kept glancing at the curtain. Instead, a shadow shifted behind it. Too tall, too slender for a cat. It looked like a person standing very still. "Dave, is that you?" I tried again, my voice wavering. Still no answer, but the shadow moved. Slowly, deliberately, it slid closer to the curtain, not walking, but gliding, like something underwater. The shape was human-like, but off, too elongated, too fluid. As it neared, I saw what looked like a hand pressing against the plastic, disturbingly long, fingers spider-like and thin. Panic rose in my throat. I dropped the clothes, unable to move. The shadow paused, then slowly, a head tilted. I couldn't see features, just the dark outline, but I felt a gaze, cold and intense, boring into me through the plastic. Then, a low, guttural gurgle, like someone trying to speak through water. Deep, unsettling, coming from right there, inches away. My mind screamed, "That's not Dave. That's not human." That sound finally broke my paralysis. I scrambled back, dripping, arms flailing. I didn't look back. I fled up those stairs, 3 at a time, heart hammering. I slammed the door shut and leaned against it, gasping, tears streaming. Dave came home to find me a terrified wreck. He checked the basement. Nothing was there. But I know what I saw and heard. For the rest of the time we lived there, I refused to go near that laundry room. Dave had to take over, or I'd use a laundromat. The memory of that elongated shadow, that disturbing gurgle, the impossible hand, it etched itself into my mind. Even years later, alone in a quiet house, I swear I hear a faint, wet gurgling sound just at the edge of my hearing. And I still wonder, what was it doing behind that curtain? And why did it choose to reveal itself to me? After my grandparents passed, clearing their old farmstead fell mostly to me. It was a bittersweet, overwhelming task. Their basement was a true time capsule. Dusty canned goods, a forgotten loom, my grandfather's chaotic workbench. I expected memories. I didn't expect pure dread. The basement was a labyrinth of cold, dark stone walls, uneven concrete, and crumbling dirt. It smelled perpetually of damp earth, mothballs, and a faint, metallic tang I couldn't place. One sweltering afternoon, sorting yellowed newspapers, I noticed something tucked away in a deep alcove behind a monstrous old coal furnace. It was a wooden chest, heavy and dark, bound with thick, rusty iron chains that looked almost welded to the wood. It was unlike anything else. No dust motes danced on its surface, as if sealed from time. A strange intuition told me to leave it, but curiosity urged me closer. As I reached to touch the cold, corroded metal, a low rhythmic thumping started. Thump, 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 thump. Not loud, more like a deep pulse vibrating through the stone floor, from the chest itself. I froze, hand hovering, breath catching. The air around the chest grew noticeably colder, an unnatural contrast to the humid summer air. I tried to rationalize it. Furnace cooling, pipes expanding, but the thumping was too regular, too deliberate, too alive. I slowly pressed my ear against the rough wood of the chest. The thumping stopped. Silence. Then, the single bare bulb overhead began to flicker wildly, plunging the basement into momentary darkness before sputtering back to life. In those blackouts, shadows writhed, making familiar shapes look menacing. My heart hammered, but I was gripped by an unshakable compulsion. I had to know what was in it. I fumbled for the rusted latch, fingers trembling. The moment my hand made full contact, the thumping started again. Harder, faster, vibrating violently through the wood, through my bones. And then, from inside the chest, came a sound I will carry to my grave. A choked, wet gasp followed by a low, guttural growl, like something monstrous struggling for air. It wasn't human. It was raw, animalistic, full of malevolence. The metallic tang sharpened, tasting like blood and rot. Then came the scratching. Frantic, desperate claws scraping against the inside of the heavy lid, with another wet, struggling gasp. Pure terror seized me. Every fiber of my being screamed, "Run!" I dropped the chains, stumbled back, and scrambled up those uneven stairs, not daring to look behind me. I didn't even lock the basement door, just burst out into blazing sunlight, gasping for air. I never went back down there. My parents hired a crew to clear the basement, including that chest. I never asked what happened to it, or what they found. They just said it was disposed of, their faces tight, their eyes avoiding mine. But the sound of that choked gasp, the desperate scratching, the raw malevolence, it still echoes in my darkest nightmares. I still wonder, what was my grandfather keeping chained down there? Was it truly gone? Or just waiting for someone else to find its prison, to set it free? When Jen and I bought our first house, the basement was a huge selling point. Fully finished, carpeted, paneled walls, a small bar, a tiny bathroom, perfect for my home office and the kids. We spent weeks setting it up. It felt safe, cozy. But there was one strange anomaly, a persistent, inexplicable cold spot. It wasn't just cold, it was too quiet, an oppressive silence that seemed to absorb all sound. The previous owners left antique furniture, a heavy wooden rocking chair, a small table, and a porcelain doll facing the wall. Jen found the doll creepy, but I saw potential. Little did I know, that basement was already occupied, and it didn't like us touching its things. I'd put a book on the built-in shelves, only to find it on the floor next day. Dismissed it as settling. But then I noticed the rocking chair. I'd come downstairs, and it would be gently swaying. A slow creak, 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 echoing in the still air. No windows open, no drafts. I'd stop it, leave, only to find it swaying again next time. Jen thought I was imagining things. "Old house, honey," she'd say. But the feeling of being watched, of being an intruder, grew stronger. I started avoiding the basement. The rocking chair, once quaint, now felt like an accusing, malevolent presence. One evening, home alone, a soft thump vibrated through the floorboards above me. I froze. Then clearly, unmistakably, came the rhythmic creak, creak, creak from downstairs. The rocking chair. My heart pounded. It wasn't settling. It was moving. Against my better judgment, gripped by terrifying compulsion, I grabbed a heavy flashlight and started down. Each step creaked. The air grew colder, heavy, with suffocating silence. As I reached the bottom, my flashlight beam cut through the gloom, falling directly on the rocking chair. It was indeed swaying, slowly, steadily, a silent macabre dance. I stood paralyzed, breath-catching. The rocking slowed, then stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the small table, a distinct, deliberate tap-tap. I swung the flashlight. The porcelain doll, which we'd always kept facing the wall, was now turned directly towards me. Its painted, lifeless eyes stared blankly. And then, I heard it. A whisper, so cold and close that I felt icy air on my cheek. Not angry, but perfectly clear, imbued with a possessive, unsettling authority. You moved my things. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Pure terror seized me. I dropped the flashlight, plunging the room into darkness. I scrambled backwards, stumbled up the stairs, knocking over books, and clawed my way out. I burst through the basement door, slammed it shut, locked it, and shoved an old trunk against it. We sold that house 3 months later, at a loss, offering no explanation. I never went back down. The memory of that whisper, the doll's unblinking stare, the silent rocking chair, it still gives me chills. I often wonder about the new owners. Did they rearrange? Did they move the doll? Did they too hear the quiet, possessive voice of the basement's true owner? Upset that someone was touching her things? I hope, for their sake, they never find out. Growing up in a rural area, our house had an old root cellar, really just a glorified basement. It was half buried, accessible from outside by creaky wooden doors and steep steps into perpetual darkness. My dad stored tools, but to me, it was always forbidden, scary. The air down there was thick, cold, and smelled of earth and something faintly metallic. I was about 12 when the weirdness started. My dad had a distinctive padlock on the cellar doors, always locked. One morning, he found the padlock on the ground, unlocked, door slightly ajar. He was furious, thinking someone tried to break in. Nothing was missing. He relocked it, spooked. It happened again weeks later, and again, always the same. Padlock on ground, doors ajar, nothing touched. It wasn't break-ins. It felt more like an invitation. Or a warning. Then came the sounds. Low guttural growls from deep within the cellar, especially at night. My parents dismissed it as coyotes, but the sound was too close, too deep, too unnatural, like something large, frustrated, not entirely animal, was trapped or waiting. One afternoon, walking by the cellar, I heard it. A soft scratching from inside the wooden doors, like sharp claws trying to get out. My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear to the rough wood, heart pounding. The scratching stopped. Then a low thump, as if something heavy had pressed against the door from inside. A strange, sickening smell wafted up through the cracks, like rotten meat and damp earth, but with an underlying repugnant sweetness. I backed away slowly, eyes fixed on the doors, convinced something was about to burst through. I ran inside screaming for my dad. He came out shotgun in hand, but by the time we got back, the scratching was gone. The doors were still locked, but the most terrifying incident happened a month later. We were at dinner, windows open, when a blood-curdling scream tore through the air. Not human. High-pitched, anguished, full of pain and terror. From the root cellar. My dad, white-faced, grabbed his shotgun and rushed out. My mom and I huddled, terrified. He was back in minutes, pale and shaken. The root cellar doors were wide open, the heavy padlock on the ground again. But this time, something was different. deep gouges on the inside of the doors, as if something incredibly strong had violently clawed its way out. And on the dirt path leading away toward the woods were fresh, monstrous tracks, too large for any dog, too irregular for any animal I knew. They looked like heavy, clumsy human feet, but much, much bigger, with distinct claw marks at the end of each toe. My dad never said another word about it, just boarded up the root cellar completely with plywood, nailing it shut like a makeshift tomb. We moved a year later. To this day, the memory of that scream, those claw marks, and those impossible tracks chills me to the bone. I still wonder what was trapped in that cellar, what it was, and where it went after it broke free. Did it go back into the earth, or wander into the woods, carrying its scream of agony, seeking a new place to hide, or to hunt? I was 17, home alone one stormy Saturday night. Parents were out, sister at a friend's. I needed a wrench for my video game console, and it was in Dad's toolbox in the basement. Our 80s ranch basement was typical. Concrete floor, unfinished walls, smelling of damp earth and cardboard. The worst part was the single, bare light bulb. It always flickered. You'd flip the switch, it would hum, then flicker erratically, sometimes threatening to die before steadying, only to start again. That night, the storm outside made the house feel isolated. Rain hammered, wind howled. I dreaded going down, but the wrench was essential. Taking a deep breath, I flipped the light. The bulb sputtered, then settled into its unsettling rhythm. I descended, feeling the cold air. Shadows stretched long and thin, shifting with the light's pulses. I walked toward the workbench past towering boxes. The light continued its frantic blinking, making everything jump in my vision. I found the toolbox and knelt. That's when I noticed the flickering wasn't random. It seemed to be responding. A pause, then 3 quick flickers. Another pause, then 2 longer ones, almost like a code. My heart skipped. My logical brain said faulty wiring, but a colder part of me knew better. It felt deliberate. Then, from the darkest corner, beyond the light's reach, I heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible scrape. Something dragging an inch or two across the concrete. I froze, hand hovering. "Hello?" I whispered. The flickering light paused. Suffocating stillness, then 3 quick, bright flashes. Flash, flash, flash. My blood ran cold. That wasn't a coincidence. That was an answer. I stared into the darkness, straining my eyes, but saw nothing. Just inky blackness. I felt an intense pressure, like I was being watched. The air grew impossibly colder in that one dark spot. My skin prickled. Suddenly the light went out completely. Just off. Total blackness, heavier than any I'd known. The storm outside seemed to fade, replaced by deafening silence within the basement. My breath hitched. I couldn't see my hand. Panic clawed at my throat. And then, from that same corner, a faint, sickly green glow appeared. 2 points of light, slowly, deliberately, brightening. Too large to be animal eyes, too close together. Shaped like human eyes, but with an eerie, phosphorescent quality, like something from the deepest ocean. And they were staring directly at me, unblinking. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, paralyzed by terror so profound it felt like my soul was being ripped from my body, as those 2 glowing green eyes began to float towards me. No sound, just the silent gliding approach of those terrible orbs. Closer, closer, the chill unbearable. A whimper escaped. I finally broke. Scrambling, I stumbled backward, knocking over magazines, the noise deafening. I blindly fumbled for the steps, found them, and clawed my way up screaming. I burst through the door, slammed it shut, locked it, then dragged an antique cabinet in front. I never went down there again, alone. We moved a year later. To this day, the thought of those silent glowing green eyes, hovering in suffocating darkness, still makes me feel a cold dread. It didn't try to hurt me. It just watched. And the way it played with the light, the way it knew, it was an intelligence, ancient and malevolent, that existed in the shadows of my childhood home. I still wonder what it was, what it wanted, and if those unblinking green eyes are still there, in the pitch black, waiting for the next person to dare flip that flickering basement light. When my wife and I moved into our new house, we were thrilled. A charming 1950s place with a fully finished basement. Not a typical dark dungeon, but a proper living space. Carpeted, paneled walls, a small bar, a tiny bathroom, perfect for my home office and kids to play. We spent weeks setting it up. It felt safe, cozy. But there was one strange anomaly, a persistent, inexplicable cold spot. It was in the far corner, near the wall bordering the neighbor's property. No matter how high we cranked the heat, that single patch of carpet and wall remained undeniably, unnervingly cold. Not just cool, but a deep, penetrating chill. We joked about drafts or insulation, but no investigation revealed a logical cause. It was just cold. At first, we ignored it. Then, using the basement for work, I'd be down late, typing, when I'd feel it. A faint presence, a pressure in the air, radiating from that cold corner. Sometimes, I'd glimpse something in my peripheral vision, a fleeting shadow. But when I turned, nothing. The cold spot just felt colder. One evening, working particularly late, the house silent, my family asleep. I was deeply focused when I heard it. A faint scratching, like fingernails dragging across wood from that cold corner. My heart jumped. I froze, straining my ears. The scratching stopped. I tried to dismiss it as the house settling, but it felt too deliberate. Then a whisper, so soft I almost imagined it, like a sigh on a cold breath. Not words, just a drawn-out, mournful sound, barely audible, yet unsettling. It seemed to come from inside the wall. I slowly turned my head, eyes fixed on that patch, a tremor in my hands. The air around me grew instantly frigid, biting. I felt intense dread, an unseen presence watching me, pulling at me. My mind screamed to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes from that corner. The whisper came again, clearer this time. A single, drawn-out syllable that sounded like a name or a desperate cry. Then slowly, impossibly, a faint, cloudy mist began to form, swirling just above the carpet in that cold spot. Transparent, ephemeral, but undeniably there. As I stared, horrified, the mist began to coalesce, thickening, forming a vaguely human shape. Not distinct, no face or limbs, but the impression of a small, hunched figure, radiating unbearable sadness and bone-deep cold. It was like a ghostly condensation, reaching out towards me, almost imperceptibly, with a long, misty arm. That was it. My mind snapped. I didn't wait for it to touch me. I didn't scream. I sprang from my chair, kicking it over, and bolted up the basement stairs. I burst into the living room, slammed the door shut, and leaned against it, gasping, shaking, tears blurring my vision. We still live there, but I never go down to the basement after dark. We even bought a space heater for that corner, but it doesn't help. The cold spot remains, a constant, chilling reminder. My wife says I'm imagining things, but she doesn't use the basement at night. I still see shadows, hear faint whispers, but I refuse to look. To this day, I wonder what that sad, misty figure was, what it wanted, and why it chose that corner, that wall, to forever linger. Sometimes late at night, I swear I can feel that penetrating cold seeping up through the floorboards. A silent, chilling reminder that I'm never truly alone in my home. Our new rental had a dirt crawl space, too low to stand upright. My cat, Shadow, a sleek black cat, loved exploring it. He was always disappearing down there, chasing unseen mice. But one day, his playful disappearances stopped. I'd called for him repeatedly, but no familiar meow echoed back. It was unnerving. After an hour, I knew he was in the crawl space. With growing dread, I grabbed a powerful flashlight and crawled through the access door. The air was thick with damp earth, mildew, and something metallic, faintly sweet. My beam cut through the darkness. I called Shadow's name, my voice muffled. My beam swept across, landing on him. He wasn't playing. He was frozen, utterly still, hunched low, fur bristling, green eyes wide with terror. He stared intensely at a small, dark hole in the dirt wall at the very back. It looked like a fresh burrow, but the edges seemed too smooth, too deliberate for an animal. "Shadow?" "What is it, boy?" I whispered, my own fear rising. He didn't acknowledge me. His body was rigid, trembling, his gaze locked on that hole, as if staring into the eyes of death. I crawled closer, the air growing colder, heavier around the hole. The edges of the hole looked almost worn, as if something had been coming and going for a very long time. Suddenly, a faint, rhythmic scratching began to emanate from inside the hole. It was slow, deliberate, like something methodically dragging claws across stone. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Shadow let out a low, guttural hiss, a sound of pure terror, but still he couldn't tear his gaze away. The scratching quickened, becoming frantic, desperate, like something frantically trying to dig its way out. I couldn't stand it. The fear from my cat, combined with that horrifying, impossible sound, was too much. I lunged, grabbed Shadow, and pulled him fiercely into my arms. He was stiff and unresponsive, still staring at the hole over my shoulder. As I turned to crawl out, scrambling backwards, the scratching intensified, becoming a frenzy of sharp, rapid scrapes, followed by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the ground. It sounded like something large, angry, had just realized its prey was being taken. I burst out of that crawl space, gasping for breath, pulling the access door shut with a frantic shove. Shadow, once out, immediately darted under the nearest couch. His tail tucked, his eyes still wide, fixed on the crawl space door, as if whatever was in there could see him. Shadow was never the same. He became withdrawn, jumpy. He wouldn't go near the basement door, let alone the crawl space. He'd just sit in the living room, always facing that door, ears perked, listening to faint, rhythmic scratching sounds that only he seemed to hear. We eventually moved out, unable to stand the oppressive silence and Shadow's constant terror. I still wonder what was in that hole, what he saw, and if that rhythmic scratching still echoes from beneath the floorboards, waiting for another curious cat or another oblivious tenant to get too close. So there you have it, 8 chilling reminders that sometimes the most terrifying unknown isn't in a far-off abandoned building, but right beneath your feet, in the quiet, forgotten spaces of our own homes, where the veil between worlds seems thinnest. The next time you hear a creak from downstairs, or feel an unexplained chill that raises goosebumps, ask yourself, is it just the house settling? Or is something else stirring in the dark? Something that has been waiting patiently for you. We've all got that basement door, haven't we? The one that leads to the unknown. What secrets do you think your basement holds? Have you ever experienced anything inexplicable down there? Anything that defied logic and left you truly unsettled? Share your own chilling basement encounters in the comments below. We want to hear your stories. And if you dare to delve into more true horror, more tales of the unexplained, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Until next time, stay safe and remember to always check that lock, especially on the basement door, especially after dark.